Today on Real Money, I'm joined by my guest, Josh Cadillac. This was a fire interview. Josh gave so many nuggets of wisdom about what it's really like and what it really takes to make it in the real estate industry today. He's got some powerful takeaways, some powerful information for realtors and specifically female realtors. And if you're aspiring to be in the real estate industry, you've got to listen to this episode, whether you're going to be buying real estate, investing in real estate, or you're a real estate agent yourself. Josh knows what it's like to build everything, lose it, and then build it again. He lost his family's legacy and fortune in 2008 through no real fault of his own, but through the real estate bubble. Just like so many people, he found himself with everything gone, including his family's home. And then he rebuilt to the empire that he has today. You're going to learn tangible key takeaways from Josh about what you really need to know. And like he says, how you need to know your shit in real estate to be successful today, and what the real magic is behind closing a client for life. We laughed, we cried, we had a great conversation. Join us with Josh Cadillac on Real Money. Hey, Josh.
Hey, Lisa.
Hey. You're traveling in Montana.
True story.
Where are you in Montana?
I'm glad you asked. Bozeman. I'm moving all around, so I had to think for a minute there.
Yeah.
I was in Missoula the other day, and now I'm in Bozeman for a day, and then Helena and someplace else.
Okay, well, we're going to shout out to all the Yellowstone fans today.
Oh, yeah.
Are you a Yellowstone fan?
The Yellowstone, 1883, and the other spinoff, 1923. Yeah, they're good shows.
We did that too. We loved Yellowstone so much. My husband loves Yellowstone so much. I think we've seen it probably 4 times through.
Oh, wow.
The whole, yeah.
That's impressive. Yeah. I haven't done that.
Where do you live? You don't live in Montana. Where do you live?
I live in Southeast Florida, pretty much smack dab between Miami and Fort Lauderdale.
That's right. I remember reading that. That's where you started real estate, was in Miami.
That is it.
All right. So I have so many questions for you. You ready?
Let's go.
Okay. You started in real estate in the 90s.
Well, my father was a real estate investor for a very long time. And so as he sort of retired, I wound up running the real estate investment operation, our operation. And then when he passed away, I took over. And then 2008 happened. Surprise. And we weren't, by any normal metric of investment, we really weren't over leveraged at all. But for that event, it turned out we were over leveraged. We were sitting about 60% LTV on all the stuff that we had, nothing crazy.
Okay, well, I'm going to stop you. Most of my clients have no idea what that means.
Okay, so 60%.
Most of my audience, my people.
Okay,
and I don't know, what does that mean?
LTV would be loan to value. So the size of the loan compared to the value of the property we would borrow 60%. So we had 40% equity in our properties. And we were in restaurants, just opened a couple of restaurants. And because of the housing crisis, discretionary spending fell precipitously. And restaurants was one of the subsets of the market that was most devastated. So the restaurants went from being, they weren't killing it, but they were new, they were getting there. To being a huge albatross, and the real estate couldn't support itself either. So we wound up losing everything, and I had to start all over again in 2008, 2009. I basically was broke and had to start from scratch and build it all over again.
What does that mean, lose everything?
I lost the home that I grew up in. I lost everything. Yeah, I had to start from scratch.
Wow.
And so it meant I didn't have a job. I didn't have a place to go. The businesses that I'd built my entire life were gone, and I needed to take and come up with a fallback position.
How young were you when that happened?
So it was 2008, 2009. So that would put me in my late 20s, I guess. I don't know. Have to doing some math in my head right now. I guess right around 30 years old, maybe.
Did you believe growing up that you were going to take over your dad's company? Was that
Oh,
or
yeah. Um, yeah, for the most part. I mean, it was just sort of an unspoken. My father was old school Italian. You take over the family business. The whole family worked together. My brother, my sister. And at about the time my father passed away, just after that, my brother decided he was going to go off to college. So
Mm.
he wasn't around. And my sister kind of at some point went off and did her own thing. So after my dad passed away, so it just wound up being me and my mom that were kind of keeping things going. And so had to make sure Mama was taken care of and had to get back on track.
I didn't notice the Italian in your voice until you said that, and then I was like, "Oh yeah."
It's there.
Are you
The New
first
York and
generation, second
oh
generation
no,
Italian?
that's the
Oh,
third. My father's father came over on the boat when he was two, and my father then was New York all the way up until his 50s, and then he came to Florida back and forth, and yeah.
so the American dream. My mom's mom. So my great grandmother immigrated from Italy.
Well, there you go. There you go.
That sounds a lot like the American dream.
It very much was. My grandfather was a very Americanized Italian. I mean, he was very much, he didn't marry an Italian woman. He married a German woman.
Hmm.
He believed in America. He thought it was the greatest thing in the world. At one point, he, uh, he opened 10 different businesses that went bankrupt until the business that he opened that is still in business today.
10
10.
businesses?
Yeah, so the way that the last name Cadillac came to be was that he opened a fleet of Cadillac taxi. He opened a taxi cab business with a fleet of Cadillac taxi cabs in the 1920s, and he was doing really, really well with that. And he got a reputation that if your car wasn't behaving right, and it was one of these like a Duesenberg or some Rolls Royce or something where there was nobody to fix it because you could get the car shipped to America, but there was nobody in America that could fix it. You take it to Johnny Cadillac. He had, in addition to being, really mechanically inclined, he had a great ear. He could listen to a song on the radio that had never been played before, and he could, in a couple of minutes, he could play it himself, just play by ear. So he could listen to the sound of the engine and figure out exactly what was wrong with the car and fix it. So everybody used to say, you got a problem with your car, you take it down to Johnny Cadillac, he'll take care of you. Well, the nicknames, he's Italian, he's in New York. The nickname's
Yeah.
going to stick. Of course it's going to stick. That's not a big deal up until the 1940s when he's doing a whole bunch of work with the company that's still in business today, Acon Contracting. 1943, the FBI rolls in and says, you're Italian, your wife is German, and you're operating this business under a nickname, under an alias. Pick one name or the other. So he not only gave up his family name, he gladly gave up his family name and went on to make millions of dollars rather than complain about being discriminated against or picked on or anything like
Hmm.
that. He believed in the American dream and he just made it work for him. No excuses. Amazing man.
Amazing. And that's your legacy.
That's
It's
that's
amazing.
that's where this kind of brain damage. That's where it starts. You don't get this way on your own. It takes a series of events to wind up like this.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so it's 2008. This is not just your legacy, this is a generational legacy that's in play here in 2008.
That is true.
And economists saw this coming, no one listened to them. There was
Some
there
did.
were
Yeah.
there were some people who saw this but nobody listened to them. So 2008 hits, everything's gone.
Mm-hmm.
What are you feeling or thinking? You're I mean it didn't happen overnight, right? It was like,
No. I mean, first, the thing about having a father that was born in 1930 is they're a very tough-minded breed. Like if you're banging your head against the wall and the wall's not moving, and then you're not banging your head hard enough, obviously. I mean, that's just kind of,
yeah.
my father's answer to almost every problem was you just work harder. And so, I wound up letting most of the employees go. I was working myself 7 days a week. I mean, there was a period there for like, I don't know, several months. I didn't take a day off. Was working 7 days a week and doing whatever we could to take and make it work. And so then this kind of fades. So I had started as I see that it's really going away. I went and got my real estate license and worked on my general contractor's license as well. And I got those things in place as kind of fallback positions and started looking into seeing not even as as where I was going to fall to, but to see if I could bring some other money in to take and
Mm-hmm.
try to support this thing and try to make it through. Because you're like always convinced the daylight's just on the other side. It's
Yeah.
hard to walk away from something you're so far down the rabbit hole on. But it wasn't it wasn't the plan, right? It wasn't where I was supposed to be. And sometimes a sledgehammer to the head is the only way to take and get that lesson driven home. And at some point we made the decision, and it was honest, especially with the restaurants, it was kind of a relief to sit here and say, all right, this is just not going to go. Let's let our people go and call it. And so
my stomach hurts even just thinking about that.
Yeah, no, it wasn't easy. I mean, it's admitting, maximal failure, that you've bet everything and it's lost. Although I've got to say that I don't remember feeling particularly hopeless. That when people have asked me about it afterwards, because I do get asked about it, like, did you feel like it was all over? I knew that I had to do something to try to make it better. And so one of the big lessons that I teach is that when you're the CEO, you're not allowed to say it's not my fault.
Yeah.
That's just one of the unutterable phrases as being the boss. And I was raised to be the boss since I started working for my dad when I was 9. Everything was about, how do you set an example? How do you be the boss? How do you take the responsibility? My dad used to say all the time, heavy is the head that wears the crown, right? So when you're the boss and you can't say it's not your fault, that leaves you to CEO question number 1, which is, what the hell are you going to do about it? Yeah. This is what's happened. What's the next thing that has to get done, right? And so I don't know why, and I have to credit other people. It's something special about me. It's just I was raised to never leave myself the slack to like, oh, woe is me. Like, you got to make sure your mom's okay. You got to take care of your brother and your sister, get off your ass and do something.
Yeah.
And so I did, as best I could. And the real estate thing, it took off for me, and we were able to raise investors and eventually start a fund and start buying some for ourselves, buying some for our investors. So we did a lot of good things, and now we're here.
Amazing. Did you have kids? Do you have kids?
No, I have spared the world that indignity of my demon spawn. No kids for me, other than a little white English bulldog.
Okay.
That's
What's its name?
My child, my son.
What's his name?
Chubbasaur, like chubby dinosaur. Yeah.
We got to find a picture of Chubbasaur. That's amazing.
I will send you guys a picture of Chubbasaur. Okay. His front legs are about that long. But 60 pounds of just pure molten lead. He is hilarious.
That's so great. All right. I want to come back though. So that was a very Reader Digest, like, I built again.
Mm-hmm.
I have women in my world, and myself even, we're wanting to build with real estate, knowing that it takes money. I truly believe this. I'm curious to know if you believe the same thing, but it takes money to make money.
Absolutely. And it's the ability to break free from the lie of the consumer culture that we have, that if you live within your means, you're going to get ahead. It's a lie. You'll never get ahead living within your means. You got to live below your means. And it was actually a woman that taught this to me. It was an ex-girlfriend of mine. Before I met my wife, I would say she was the love of my life. She's always going down in my mind as the one that got away through no fault of my own. It was like all diligent effort on my end, but I still don't know why it didn't work, but it didn't. Long story short, but really successful. She had a really good job at she was in management. She was managing one of the most prestigious buildings in all of Florida, and making a really good salary. And so I went to her house, and she had bought this little townhouse. Mm-hmm. It's a 3-bedroom townhouse. And when I get there, she's got 2 other people living there. And I said, what's going on? She says, I rent out the other 2 rooms. I said, like, why would you do that? Thinking maybe she's not making enough money, or maybe there's like some bills that I don't know about or whatever. She says, why wouldn't I? And she's from Venezuela. Mm-hmm. And, it's just, for her, it wasn't what it is. I mean, like, the idea of renting out a bedroom, what are the neighbors going to think that we kind of have in this world?
Yeah.
As opposed to, this is free money. The bedroom's just sitting there doing nothing. So she totally shamed me into renting my back bedroom. I'm not going to lie. She didn't really shame me. I shamed myself because I'd already written a book on investing, and
Is
you
this
know, I had
after
it out there.
2008?
This is maybe 2000. I think my book came out maybe 12 or 13.
Okay.
No, it had to be when I was with her. So maybe it's a little later than that. Maybe 15, 16
Okay.
is when my first book came out. And because I remember she taught me one other lesson, which is to relax and, you know, like enjoy the win. I just finished writing a funny story. I finished writing the book, right? And it's coming like the final proof. It's back from the editor. Everything is good. It's going to public. It's being published.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, all right. So, the next thing I got to do is the next thing. She's like, you wrote a book. Take yourself out to dinner, throw a party, you know, like
Okay.
take a minute and celebrate. This doesn't happen every day.
Yeah.
And, you know, just one of those lessons I didn't learn as a kid, was to take and celebrate the wins a little bit. And that's something I've had to kind of teach myself and watch myself on, because I don't do a great job of that.
So you took, yeah, I don't know many entrepreneurs that do, honestly. I think that's a great lesson, that
Yeah.
we're always about the win, the next, the win. And
When the people
it's
around
killing
us, it's part of being a good CEO. And I don't know how you feel about this, Lisa, but this is an idea that I've been talking a lot about. And this is probably where the next book is probably going to go, is this idea of being a good CEO to yourself. Because frankly, most CEOs treat themselves far differently than they would treat anybody that ever worked for them.
Yep.
We treat ourselves far worse. You know, we send ourselves off to work every day, go get stuff done. And on the way home, all we can think about is all the stuff we didn't get done, rather than the minor miracles we pulled off to get done everything that we did get done. We don't let ourselves enjoy it, which means we burn ourselves out. And it's because I think for a lot of us, we've learned that we perform better with the stick than we do with the carrot. We're afraid to give ourselves the carrot because we think that we're going to somehow take our foot off the accelerator. And we get so much pleasure from making progress that we're afraid to do it. We're afraid of ourselves. We're afraid of the lesser version of ourselves.
I think that's a really important part. I think that's a really important point. And I also think that do we do it because we have guilt and shame around it?
Oh, I'm sure. And I will tell you this, I am totally not pop culture. I will use guilt. I will use shames. I will use ritual beatings to get out of myself what I need. I'm kidding about the self-flagellation, but I will use what tools I can to get the best life out of me that I'm capable of, because I've learned this. Nobody else is going to hold me accountable to do that. Nope. I've got to do the work, but it's learning that balance point, because there is a point where it's just too much. And so figuring out how to be able to enjoy some of the stuff that we've pushed so hard for, we've suffered so hard for, to take those moments and enjoy that and do that well, and give yourself, I like to call it the guilt-free ice cream experience. When you take yourself out for ice cream, you can get whatever you want, and you're not allowed to think about for a second how much cardio it's going to take to undo this. Because if you're going out there getting the ice cream, thinking about what it's going to take to undo this, you're not actually enjoying. You're getting all the downside with not nearly all the upside. It's just not as good.
I just had a conversation about that with one of my dear friends who is running a 30-year company. She's in her 50s, and she's now saying, okay, I've been pushing a boulder up the hill. It's a wildly successful company, one of the fastest growing companies in America, pushing the boulder up the hill. And now I'm asking myself, what am I doing all of this for?
That's the thing. That idea, the old man in the sea idea, that we spend our lives hunting this great fish, and then when we finally catch it and bring it to shore, it's a skeleton of what we thought it was. It's one of these big ideas, because what happens is in the pursuit, we lose what we were actually pursuing in the first place, or we were pursuing the wrong idea in the first place. It's one of the reasons why that idea of being a good CEO to yourself starts. Where does any good business start? It starts with standards, right?
Yep.
I say it all the time. You have the choice to be Yugo or Rolls Royce.
Yep.
What separates the two is that choices that Rolls Royce made before they put the first nut and bolt together of what they were going to allow to roll out their shop and why, what they were going to be about. And so any good decision is going to start at the end and work backwards. We got to take and figure out what we want the end product to look like and figure out what things we got to do today to turn out a product that looks like that. And if the end product is a business or something like that, that needs to be part of a bigger life. Yes. That is the product that you're turning out, because at the end of the day, that's really what we leave the world with, is this life that we've lived. That business needs to be a cog. Granted, in my world, it has to be an important cog, but it's got to be a major cog in what we do. If we're not doing that, then we've set ourselves up to chase something that at the end may turn out to be totally superfluous. It may be something that is totally irrelevant. And we're left like your friend saying, and now what?
And now what?
And what a terrible way to live.
I agree. It's almost like what's the word I'm trying to say? It's like the bite of the CEO, like we got bitten by something, because the CEO's suicide rate, especially for new businesses, is incredible.
Of course, you've put everything of yourself.
Everything.
And when you risk like that, the fallout is then it is the ultimate of failures, because you've put everything of yourself out there and been found wanting. Oh man, if your value is based entirely on that, well, you could understand how devastating for some people that can really be.
Yeah. And I have people on my show that we talk about that. I'm curious for you, what is that vision? Because you lost everything, you rebuilt. And from what I'm hearing, it's not for the sake, although the money's nice. I'm hearing underneath that for you that there's something bigger, there's something greater. What is that for you?
If I can bear the flag with pride of my father's contribution in my life, that would be a life well lived. If I can make that old man proud, because I am the standard bearer for his legacy going forward.
Yeah.
And when you make this less about yourself and more about others, I think that you've found what this whole thing we're here to do is really all about.
Others. And what's your dog's name?
My dad's name was Bob. Robert.
No, your
dad. Everybody called him Bob. Or Mr. Cadillac was much more common. Oh, my father was, as far as intimidating goes, I mean, he wasn't he wasn't a tall guy or anything, like big belly, big Italian, looks like he swallowed a beach ball belly. Jolly looking guy for the most part, but the level of intimidation that man was capable of generating was astounding.
Yeah. Well, he had a belief.
He had a persona and an ability that was just honed over many years of having to find ways to get it done. I mean, he lived a very impressive life.
Sounds like you're doing him proud.
I'm doing my level best.
Yeah.
Give him something to cheer at something to cheer about from the stands.
Yeah.
His race is done.
Yeah. So let's talk about women in real estate.
Mm-hmm.
You're teaching, you're training, you're inspiring, and you're doing primarily residential real estate?
Largely residential. I do more commercial now than I have in the past, but I've always done both. I don't think it's necessary to draw the line in the sand there. That has been. I think it's, I think residential agents stay away from commercial if they don't know what they're doing. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think people should always work within the scope of what they know, but I think it's a distinction that shouldn't be there. People that sell real estate should understand real estate, and sadly they don't. It's, if I want to embarrass a real estate agent, easiest question in the world for me to ask them is look them right in the eyes and say, so tell me, what's good about real estate? And watch them. They go, oh, they don't know. They're asking themselves, how about failure as a CEO? People go out there because when you're the real estate agent, you are the CEO of your operation. That you work under a broker, not for the broker. You are a one-person show, right? You set yourself out there to sell a product and you don't even understand what value it brings to the consumer. That is a failure to set the staff up for success. If I've ever heard, it's a recipe for disaster.
Because they're thinking about themselves. Is that what it is?
I don't even want to say it's that. It's frankly, Lisa, it is one of the worst industries I've ever seen. Their answer to every problem is to advertise more.
Mm.
The solution to everything is go out and advertise more. And that's because they have a 12% nationally. Real estate agents have a 12% customer retention rate. 88% of the time after working with somebody, closing a deal. So I've had them for 3 to 6 months of working with me. And the impression they're left after working with me is, let me go take an interview and hire somebody else next time. They got my name and phone number stored in their phone. All they got to do is just push the little thing on their phone and they got me. As a CEO, that should be keeping me up all night. Why that's happening. And in our industry, it's not even talked about.
Why is that happening?
Because agents don't realize what it is they're selling. They don't know what's good about it. I mean, if you came to me, Lisa, and said, hey, Josh, I'm thinking about buying a house. All right, well, Lisa, you got to understand, what are you doing now? Have you bought a house before? I want to know right away what it is that you don't know. But the way I like to take and talk about it is kind of like this. Good businesses make assumptions about their customers. Now, in real estate, it's like, fair housing violation. You can't judge people. I'm like, great businesses judge people like crazy.
All the time.
The best businesses do. I'm like, I used to own restaurants. Is there something I could guess without being a rocket surgeon? Like, right? Is there something I could guess about the people coming in the door that they might represent over the overall normal average distribution, statistically speaking, on the bell curve of humanity? I ask a room full of agents, and somebody finally will say, after everything else, maybe they're hungry. Exactly. They're probably hungry. I say, who here's ever worked in a restaurant? I get a bunch of hands. I say, is that hangry thing? Is that a real thing? They're like, yeah, nice people. Blood sugar gets low. They're jerks, right?
Yeah.
I'd say, is that hangry thing a problem for my business? My Yelp reviews are falling. They're mean to my staff. My servers are in the back crying because somebody said something bad to them. Like, of course it's a problem. What could I possibly do to cut that off at the knees? And somebody will say, you could put bread on the table. I'm like, guys, I want you to understand, when you see the bread on the table, they have judged you. You have been judged and found hungry. Nobody goes in the restaurant, though, sees the bread and flips it off the table, says, I'm so
mad about it.
How dare you judge me? And we're grateful that somebody thought about what it's like to be us and meets us there. So for me, the thing that brings a person to a real estate agent is they have a need in real estate that they realize they can't solve themselves, which transitions it from a need to being a problem. The real estate industry is built around making friends and being people's buddy. I don't go in trying to be your friend, Lisa. I try to go in, show you that, Lisa, I have spent my entire career making sure I am as well prepared as I could possibly be to help you with whatever your real estate problem is. And guess what? On the way, I know some funny dad jokes. I'll have you laughing. We'll have some fun. We can be friends too, but that's not the primary. Real estate's primary is go make a friend, because frankly, that is low hanging fruit, sales talk, emotional manipulation, BS that is in every sales industry. And I hate it all. That's the part that I take and try to attack in what I teach.
I love that. Don't be their friend, be their expert.
Yeah. You got to know what you're talking about. For me, if that customer is talking and I'm listening, it's a problem. I need to establish, because here's the thing.
Yep.
One of the big lines in real estate is buyers are liars. The reason why buyers are liars is because the agents have done nothing to show them that they're worthy of the truth. The customer comes in thinking that you're.
I've never heard that before. I'm not in the real estate industry. Yeah.
No, but that's one of mine. That, by all means, if you want to steal it and use it, feel free. But that's one of mine. I mean, if you go to a used car salesman, you're looking at a car, used car salesman walks up and says to you, hey, Lisa, how much money you got to spend on a car? If you don't know that guy, what are you going to say? You're not going to tell him the truth.
Nothing.
You're going to tell him, because you have this thought in your head. They're going to use whatever you say against you. They think of real estate agents as only slightly more trustworthy than used car salesmen and less trustworthy than ambulance chasing attorneys. I know that on the way in, and I negotiate my way out of that position. Agents go in fat, dumb, and happy and act like they're smiling so they like me. You have to negotiate your way out of the default perception they have of a real estate agent, which is that you are untrustworthy and all you care about is your commission. If you're not doing that, Well, once again, you're not anticipating your customer very well.
Yeah. What do people, let's talk, because I think it's a good segue to the market right now, which is a shit show.
Sure.
But let's be honest, it's always a shit show. I mean, if it's not 2008, it's something else going on in the market where it's high, it's low, all around.
Right. It's just like any other market, except that it moves a little bit more slowly than others. But I mean, the stock market, a butterfly sneezes in Tibet and the stock market falls 50 points.
Yeah.
It's a thing. So,
yeah, it's a thing. And so if it's true that buyers are liars, and in my belief, real estate, especially in the residential, but honestly in commercial too, it's entirely emotional.
It can be if the agent does a bad job of preparing their customer. The reason why it's emotional is because agents only use emotional language when they speak to customers. They take the best things about real estate, which is the financial benefit of buying real estate versus anything else they could be doing with that money, which is typically leaving it at a savings account. They leave that off the table. And so when I try to explain to agents how bad that is, I tell them it's like me telling you to go sell Teslas, but not talking about them being environmentally friendly or fast. So let's take the two best things about the car off the table. Now with the lesser things, go sell the product. They handicap themselves on the way in, not realizing from 1900 all the way through 2008, the biggest fall in real estate pricing, that includes World War I, the Great Depression, World War II, was in 1991. Real estate prices nationally fell 0.3%. The last inflationary market that we were in, the median home price was $17,000 in 1970. Interest rates were 7.6%. By 1980, median home price was $47,200. Total appreciation, 177.6% compared to 103% inflation. In other words, the product that I sell, Lisa, outpaced inflation by over 70%. Now, that had to be then, Josh. That's not now. What just happened the last 3-4 years? There's inflation. The value of money goes down. Real estate prices disproportionately go up.
Yeah.
And so, that basic understanding that normally in a normal inflationary market, real estate appreciates over a decade, 50 to 65%. You can pretty much bank on it. Price from the beginning to the end, about 55 to 65% differential. In an inflationary decade, all bets are off.
Should people then really be concerned about interest rates?
Well, considering that the interesting thing with real estate is toward the end of an inflationary cycle, the prices still tend to go up, but they start to lag behind the rate of inflation. So if you look at 1980, when inflation was 14%, 81 when it was like 11%, and then 82 when it was down to like 6%. Real estate's appreciation was actually behind in 82. Now that was with interest rates at 18 to 21%. Real estate prices still went up 1%. Real estate prices still went up because here's the thing. And I ask people, that especially the folks that are going to tell me this is 2008 all over again. It's going to go down. I'm like, all right, well, let's first figure out what caused 2008 and then see if the same environment exists, because I have the history all the way through the two great wars, Vietnam, coming off the gold standard. You want to list the stuff that we economically exposed real estate to through the decade of the 1900s all the way into the early 2000s. Real estate saw it all. And the only thing that ever caused it to come down significantly was the savings and loan crisis, and immediately was back up again the following year, and didn't let up all the way up until 2008. So I think that understanding the history of it prepares us well to counter the position that where we are today. Should people be worried about interest rates? Well, one of the interesting phenomenons, and this is one of the things that makes me more hesitant with this market, because we do have another phenomenon that exists in this market, which is all the properties that were pulled out of competing on the residential side that were repurposed as short-term rental properties.
Yeah.
That is a major factor. Those properties went out of the housing supply and into the competition with hotel. And so this has been reflected in the hotel market, and they've been dealing with this for a while. Right? But now what happened from 22 to 23, October of 22 to 23, short-term rentals were down 30%. We have seen en masse from the end of last year till the first part of this year, a repurposing of those properties away from being short-term rentals to being long-term rentals. When vacancy goes up, I have a whole class that I teach on comparing short-term versus long-term rentals. And the thing that makes short-term rentals actually typically work is keeping that occupancy rate up above 75%. And for short-term rentals, that's actually very high. The average can is between 40 and 60%, according to Air DNA. So a lot of these properties, now that's skewed because you have places like by Yellowstone where people only go there for 4 months out of the year and stuff like that. So that's going to take and throw a little bit of a wrench in there. But for the most part, they're underperforming now. And because they're underperforming, people have said, hey, look, it's a lot more work to do it long term. Let me just rent it out. I'm short term. Let me rent it out long term. I can get the consistent income and I don't have to sit there and make sure they got toilet paper 3 times a week and all this other stuff that I got to do when it's a short term rental. So this has brought a bunch of, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Are they underperforming because COVID, we saw everybody just like took off again and now it's going back to normal?
That and the fact that there was no international travel that was allowed. But the other piece of it is the reduction in discretionary income that people have. Inflation, that's what it hits, is discretionary spending. And so you have the interest rates going up, which is designed to increase savings, but also to reduce discretionary spending. And then the other double whammy, which I was screaming about when it was on its way, and we're still feeling the effects of it, is for 3 years, there was a hiatus for 43.5 million Americans not having to pay their student loans.
Yep.
When they restarted that, all that did, because realize we had an economy that was based upon the spending for 3 years of people that didn't have to pay this. Now, overnight, they have this brand new bill that comes in. What's got to happen? What's going to happen is a reduction in discretionary spending. One of the weird things, though, is as we're looking at the numbers, we're looking at the economic numbers and they look okay, but we're forgetting to adjust for the fact that a dollar today buys somewhere between 75 and 82 cents of what it used to buy, which means if a stock is priced 25% higher than it was, that means it just stood still.
Yeah.
It hasn't really gone anywhere.
Right.
And this is a piece that I don't see a lot of economists adjusting for in their numbers, is the fact that we've experienced inflation faster than normal. So the old measures and metrics of measuring have to be adjusted for the fact that the money that we're measuring it in is less valuable money.
Yeah. And I'm sure you just lost a bunch of people on that. Because, like, you know, going back to real estate, though, this is super powerful. And that's why you have the Know Your Shit brand. And that's what you're teaching about. And bringing it back home is that people are still making decisions about home purchases emotionally. But that they want to know that they're making the right decision for the vision they have in their life.
Yep.
And to your point, what I'm hearing you say is that realtors really don't know how to work with their clients in that way. So it becomes and stays superficial versus here's all the things you need to know and want to know before you buy a home right now.
I think it's that agents just have never been trained. And like I get these agents in my classes and they are well-intentioned people that really want to learn how to do this right. I'm sure like a lot of your listeners, right? And them hearing me say this stuff, often it's the very first time. I mean, I'm obviously giving you a very shortened Reader's Digest version of kind of what this stuff is that I talk about. Normally I would explain it in a lot more depth because the goal, obviously, when you give a class is that when you leave, they know how to talk about it, not just that, wow, he knows how to talk about it. I'm trying to get folks where they need to be. But the problem really is our industry has been in a race for the bottom for a very long time. And so they take the low hanging fruit of just get customers to like you, build rapport from when you walk in the door. If they like you, they'll use you. And that's kind of true, but they won't reuse you when they realize you're not that good at what you do. And the cost of that is writing those advertising checks for your entire career.
It's so much easier. Actually, it's so much more efficient to keep the customers that you have.
I know.
Right? This happened to me. So in 2004, 2003, 2004, I bought my first home. I was 22, 23 years old.
Congrats.
And thank you. The realtor, though, wasn't in it long term. And there were a lot of people that jumped into real estate as real estate agents because it was booming.
Yep.
He didn't know what he was talking about. And like so many people, I bought my home for double than what it was worth.
Well, what it wound up being worth. Yeah.
Wound up being worth, right? What my neighbor paid for it versus what I paid for it, right?
Sure.
And then and I get now in perspective, I was in my 20s, I didn't know anything, but in perspective, the market fell out, the bottom fell out, people left the industry. He was nowhere to be found.
Yep.
And that happened several times in my relationship with realtors, is not necessarily knowing even what is a good realtor versus not a good realtor. How do I know what they know versus what they don't know? How do you suss that out?
And for me, I wouldn't let you have the chance to ask that question, Lisa, because the conversation I'd have with you would sound very much like the one that I just had with you, which is you would walk away from the conversation knowing, wow, this person really knows the market. Because the real question that any customer should be asking, and I'm going to assume they're asking, is this the best time to do what I think I'm thinking about doing? And so what I'm going to do, the bread on the table for me in this restaurant, is I'm going to tell you, Lisa, this is where we are in the market today. And Lisa, this is how we got here. And based upon how we got here, where we are today, and the economic pressures we see, when we've seen this in the past, this is how real estate's behaved. So this is where I think it's going. And this is where I think the opportunities are. That's going to be my initial conversation before I ask you how many bedrooms and bathrooms you want, what area, what schools. I don't care about any of that until I make the case to you that I've done the work ahead of time to be worthy of your business.
I love that.
I
love that so much.
There's a line that somebody said the other day, and it stuck with me, and I've been saying in all my classes, that champions aren't made in the ring, they're recognized in it. What makes me a champion is not what I say when I actually meet you. It's all the stuff I prepared, all the rope I jumped and all the miles I ran before that to be ready for when I talk to you. I am ready for that match. I'm ready to go. And if I'm not, well, that tracks back to being a bad CEO. That's a failure to plan the CEO's part. It's a failure to anticipate your customers, and no good business, no successful business does not anticipate their customers.
Yeah. So it's not even telling real estate agents, which I do have a good number of real estate agents as clients and people in my world, is it's not even get in the ring. It's do the work so that when you're in the ring, you'll win.
Absolutely. I call it, when I talk about negotiating, my first point with negotiating class is always, whenever given the chance, always bring a bazooka to a knife fight. Always. Like if I know it's going to be a knife fight, I'm not bringing a knife. Like if I can anticipate, I am bringing a tank. Like why wouldn't I?
Oh, okay. Got it.
And so the fact of the matter is, I have a good idea what things you as a customer care about. That is the negotiation I'm walking into.
Yep.
So why would I take and wait for you to bring up these ideas for me to start thinking about a solution or what you're going to care about? I'm going to have thought about it before I ever met you, because that's actually showing you respect. That's showing you care and concern. That's showing you the diligence that I put into the business that I've run to try to take and make sure that what you need, I have prepared myself to do, in anticipating that I would one day get the privilege of possibly being an agent that could represent you.
I love that so much. That was your New Yorker Italian. The respect totally comes out. And I love that so much. I think that's so important. And that's why you're the best. You're the best of the best.
Try to be.
Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah. Okay. So I have a couple more questions for you.
Sure.
One is, I want to lean into the conversation that's happening right now across the real estate landscape, being really driven by Grant Cardone, which is rent versus buy.
Yeah. Grant is very good at making Grant rich. Unfortunately, Grant is not taking into account, he says you're a partner with the federal government. You're a partner with the federal government, whether it's a rental property or a purchase, it doesn't matter. Here's the big difference. On a purchase of an investment property, you're coming in with at least 30% of the money. With a residential purchase, you're coming in with 3.5% or 5%. So you're getting growth. If that property what you bought it for $100,000, I'm going to use nice round numbers, $100,000 investment property. If that property goes up 10% in value, you made $10,000. If If it's an investment property, you had to put down 30. You made 10,000 on 30. Not a bad day. If it was your home you bought, you're going to put down, let's say 3.5% plus your closing costs. Let's say you're in for $9,000.
Okay.
It goes up 10% as well. You made 10,000 on an investment of 9,000. That is triple the return. Plus, what Mr. Cardone is not telling you is, as a primary residence, you get a $250,000 as an individual or a $500,000 exclusion to your capital gain. That's an exclusion. Mr. Cardone would push back. You could do a 1031 exchange. Yes, Mr. Cardone, that is an absolutely true statement, except that doesn't get rid of the tax consequence. It just kicks the can down the road. You have to pay it later on, or take the other way out, which is to die, in which case then maybe if it's properly structured, you can get around your heirs to get around paying the taxes. Yeah. But you know what? While I want to leave Chubasaur something nice, I want to take and enjoy the wealth I've built myself too. Right. And so it's a matter of balancing those two things. I think he's dead wrong about it. It's designed to, I think, to be controversial. I actually did a side-by-side comparison because I love the numbers. I would never come to you, Lisa, and say, oh, renting is always better, because now I sound like the sleazy used car sales. Of course I'm going to say that because I make more commission. So I did the side-by-side comparison, $325,000 purchase versus a $2,550 a month rental. At the time that I did this, and this is in one of my classes, those rents were for the exact same property. If you wanted to rent this house, that's what it would rent for. If you wanted to buy it, that's what you could buy it for. Difference, cash in pocket, assuming that the purchasing was in the 28% tax bracket, $63,000. 28% for the last dollars that you're getting taxed on isn't crazy, at least for a homeowner.
Right.
$63,000 cash in pocket after 5 years for the purchase over the rental. That's $1,000 a month. To just simply make the choice to purchase versus rent, unless you think, because Lisa, I want you to be skeptical, so be skeptical, lest you think I cheated. I actually added an additional $200 a month onto the mortgage payment for reserves for replacement. I had them put $2,400 a year of extra money aside to make sure they could replace the roof, to make sure they could replace the appliances. I took into account that there's a risk differential between owning and renting. I get it. It's a thing. I had their reserves. I had them paying mortgage insurance in there, which they didn't necessarily have to, but I had them buy at FHA because that's how a lot of buyers buy, right? I wanted to take and make it as fair as I could.
First, yeah, thank you for that. And I think that for me, what scares me the most about that whole philosophy, that whole concept, is what happens when you don't, like if you're renting, what happens when you don't want to rent anymore? What have you built for yourself?
Well, I mean, I suppose Mr. Cardone's position, and this would be a viable one. So I'm gonna take and say what would be true. If you want to rent right now, then by all means invest in an investment property, because then you know what? 5 years from now, I could come, as I've done with a lot of my properties, and I've refinanced and I pull a bunch of equity out because the appreciation has been that forced savings account that's been sitting there. And if you're disciplined enough to not touch the rent money, the rent proceeds, and you can reinvest that, you could build for yourself. I'm a big fan of buying that property, and you know, guys, just scrape as best you can. Rent out that back bedroom. Everybody live in one room if you got whatever you got to do. I mean, the American dream still works, but the problem is there's all this crap that we keep telling ourselves that we need. Every child after the age of 2.5 must have an Apple tablet. You know what? Give them a cardboard box, for God's sakes, and some pillows. We'll build a fort. We'll be happy for hours. You know, it's just, we've taken that away.
Yeah. Back to basics.
It really needs to be. We need to take and stop trying to keep up with the Joneses and figure out how to get by with less. The second wealthiest people group in the United States of America per capita, based on country of origin, are the Vietnamese boat people, the people that escaped Vietnam during the communist takeover. They don't look like everybody else. But the big thing is, because everybody makes it about how you look now, what you look like, whether you're a man or a woman, whether you're, you know, with this color or that color. They don't look like everybody else, whatever. But you know what they do? They live 3 generations under one roof. They cook all their meals at home. They underconsume like nobody's business, and they are some of the biggest real estate investors that you will ever meet. They'll own a nail salon, but they don't own the nail salon. They own the shopping center that the nail salon is in, and they rent out to everybody else while they run the nail salon. It is an amazing testament to that the system still works and favors those willing to make the hard economic choices that result in prosperity.
Yeah. Thinking about women and money and the direction that we're headed, more women in America have more money, more access to capital. It's not equal. I don't know if it'll ever be entirely equal, but we're making progress.
Sure.
What are the things that you're seeing in the real estate space for women that's promising that someone can hear this today and go, yeah, this is going to be a good fit for me. I want to do this.
In real estate, as far as an industry goes, it has always been female dominated for as long as I know. I mean, my classes are typically at least 3/4 female. And many of the most successful agents in this business are female. So on the commercial side, that flips maybe, but on the residential side, it is definitely female dominated. I'm seeing more and more agents in the commercial space, and the commissions are potentially significantly larger. I think that the big issue and I see this a lot with my female agents that I train. There's two things that they've bought into. One is that they're bad at math. I hear that a lot more from my female agents than my male ones. And frankly, if you think you're bad at math, it's because you've never had anybody good teach you how to do it. I've taught math to women in their 80s that told me they spent their whole life thinking that they're bad at math, and they walk out of my class smiling saying, I can do math. And man, there is nothing in my world that feels better than that. And I say specifically women just so that women know I'm not talking about an 80-year-old guy. This is an older woman that spent her whole life in shame, believing the lie that somebody told her when she was a kid that she was bad at math. And it took her 70 plus years to get rid of that baggage and just give it a fair shake. But because she came in and she was willing, we were able to get her there. And those are the big wins. But I think that and women have bought into two camps when it comes to dealing with bullies. And what's interesting is that I deal with bullies too. I know I don't deal with bullies as much as female agents do. And I know it's usually guys that are the ones that are responsible for this. But the women that I've seen that are really successful at this, they don't buy into one of the two lies, which is either they're your customers, so you just have to, the customers always write you back down. And they're not the ones that go to crazy town and just feel like they have a chip on their shoulder all the time and have to be like shrill about it. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's just having that funny thing to say, or having that good right hook where you just put the customer back on their heels a little bit and let them know, I got a smile on my face, but don't let that fool you. Yeah. This is my turf. You don't mess with me on my turf. And so how to take and do that? You take and you push back really hard, and then you smile at the end and say, but that's just, I know that's not what you were saying, but I just want you to understand, like, you give them a way out, a way to escape. But the key to that whole thing really is just knowing your stuff cold, really knowing your stuff. And if you have that commitment, I have seen so many agents, female agents especially, be super successful at unwinding these situations. I mean, a story that comes to mind where an agent was being bullied. Have you got time for a story?
Yeah, we would love to hear that. I would love to hear that.
So I had an agent that came up to me at the end of one of my classes. And my classes are all about one thing and one thing only. It's closing customers for life. Like, I don't care if I'm teaching you cryptocurrency in real estate. How do we take and close crypto deals to close customers for life? That's always the filter, right? So she comes up to the end. She says, Josh, I'm thinking about firing the customer. Mm. Okay. So this, to me, when I hear that, this is a last gasp, desperate ploy to try to take and redeem some self-esteem from you, saying, you couldn't fire me because I quit, right? Yeah. My BS meter is already going off. All right. So I said, okay, what's going on? She says, well, this guy, I figured it was going to be the case. Former attorney, super smart guy. Now he's later on in years. He bought this house for his son. And, the husband and wife, She doesn't really hear from her. She deals pretty much exclusively with him. He's a former attorney and he knows how everything is supposed to work, but he's also getting up. There's like almost 80 and she thinks he's slipping a little bit. So their son, who they bought this house for, went to prison for drugs. And so they gave her the house to sell. So she's been trying to sell it. The house is a bit of a wreck. She's brought him a bunch of good offers, but the father doesn't want to take and make any repairs. He's unwilling to do anything. And she said, and I just heard that the son is getting out early. So I think what they're doing is they're trying to run the clock out on my listing so they can take it away from me. So I said to her, well, you can fire the customer if you want to, but what's the goal? I said, if the goal is to take and close the customer for life, I could tell you what I would do. She said, what would you do? I said, I'd call the father up right now. I'd say, oh my God, I heard the good news. Your son is getting out early. That's amazing. Do you want me to cancel the listing right now? I don't want to hold you to something that you don't want to do. If you don't want to sell that house, I don't want to sell it. You know, like what's best for you?
Yeah.
So I give a lot of advice, Lisa, as you can imagine, but I never get to see how it works out. Turns out, though, they booked me to come back to the same place a month later, and I'm giving a class, and who's in the class but this lady, and she's got a huge smile on her face. She waits till the first break. She comes up. She's like, I've got to tell you what happened. I did exactly what you said. Not only did he, within a week, sign one of the offers that I brought him, now they're talking about giving me the $3 million listing on their primary residence.
What was it? What was it that she was willing to let him go? She met him where they were at?
It was, one, she showed him that she was not there for the commission. She was there for them. What would be best for you? If me not getting paid is what winds up being best, if me not doing this, here's the thing I say, Lisa, all the time. I don't want this deal. I want every deal you're ever going to do. And the way I earn that is the way I do this deal. That's it. I close customers. I haven't advertised in more than a decade. I don't like writing the checks. It hurts my feelings. And so she had to learn that, and she had to learn. She was smart and she was confident, former police officer. So she had the confidence, but she bought into this line that there is in real estate that you have to close everything. You got to close every deal. It's the scarcity mindset.
Yep.
And that's not where it's at. And so I would say for agents, for the female agents, really doing the work that goes into strengthening the foundation. I'm a builder, right? So when I want to go up, Lisa, if I want to build a skyscraper, the first direction I go is down. The Empire State Building has like 20 basements.
Yeah.
Because they got to go so deep to make a building that tall. So I tell agents not to read books about real estate. I tell them to read books about economics. I tell them to read books about markets and history and things. I mean, just a handful of books. But now you have something to build your structure, your real estate knowledge upon. And that's what I think, especially for the female agents, if they know what they're saying is true, it helps them to have the confidence they need to speak up and not let somebody that's a bully push them around. And when you've pushed back hard, that's often when you're going to get the breakthrough that you need, where all of a sudden they want to be friends. I mean, I had it happen to me one time. I walked into a room. I was trying to help a female agent out. There's a mother and son. She had the customer, and the son was I didn't know this actually. She told me, look, the paperwork's signed. All you got to do is walk in and explain to them why they need to provide the financials. They don't want to provide the financials for this business. So I walk in thinking that's all I needed to do. Dumb me. The son says, as I walk in, it's a mother. She's got to be like in her mid-60s. Because, as you walk in your room, you're sizing up the room. This is why the police officers do so well. They're very good at sizing the room up. They've had to learn this skill. Other agents, they got their head down. I've been doing this long enough. I got my head up. Like I'm looking to see who am I walking in to talk to.
Yep.
Mother's sitting there, pastel pantsuit. I'm sorry, cream color pantsuit, pastel top, hair perfectly coiffed. Looks like the cover of AARP. Son is sitting across the table, buzz cut on the side, Led Zeppelin shirt, thick silver chain, little notch carved in his eyebrow, couple little notches over here on the side. And the son is the one doing the talking. The agent says, oh, guys, hey, this is Josh. The son says, oh, this is Josh. Josh, if you can't give us an open listing, get the hell out. For those that don't know what that means, He doesn't want to give us an exclusive to list the property. He wants to give it to me and everybody else in the whole wild world and have us fight and spend our money to see who's going to get it. And whoever gets it, they get paid. Everybody else doesn't get paid. So there's not a universe where that happens, right? So I tell this to agents. I tell this story frequently in classes. I would storm out of the room. How dare he? How much do you get if you storm out of the room?
Yeah.
Nothing. It takes no skill to get offended. So I looked at the guy, I smiled, and I said to him, open listings, fantastic. How do you feel about open marriages? I had that one in my back pocket. I'm not going to lie to you, Lisa. And I've been waiting to use it for years because I don't get that objection very often. And he says to me, now, here's the worst part. He had a comeback. He's like, I feel pretty good about him. Now, at this point, I'm kind of out of gas, but I'm sometimes okay on my feet. And I know what I bring to the table. That's the thing, right?
Of course.
And so I said to him, the whole time, that there's a body language component of this. The whole time I'm getting close to the table where he's sitting across the table. And I put my fist on the table and I kind of continue to close proximity to show him that I am not sweating him because he's a bully. There's no two way. This is a bully play. I said to him, let me ask you a question, my friend. Honestly, how much loyalty can you really expect from your partner in an open marriage? And he started to chuckle a little and he said, sit down. But I was smiling and I was kind of chuckling myself as I said it. I gave him permission to back down. One of the cool things is when you do that with a bully, all of a sudden they want to be friends.
Yeah.
Because now they know that you're a person that can stand up for themselves. Frankly, if you can't stand up for yourself, that is one of the skill sets an agent needs to have. Because if your customer is not the bully, the agent on the other side might be.
Yep.
And so, and I'm sorry, for a lot of ladies, they've been taught that that's the wrong way to behave. But I say it's like being a good linebacker in football. To be a good linebacker, you have to be very aggressive and very tough and, angry and, but you have to be able to turn that nonsense off when you walk off the field. Right. And so it's just a skill set. It's a switch that you got to learn to develop. Or if it's something you just don't feel like you can get there, this is the other caveat that I will give you that's totally permissible. Find a partner who's good at that and bad at things that you're good at. I made so much money in this business partnering with people that were the rainmakers, the networking. Guys, I am the worst networker in the world. You take me to a networking event, you turn away for 2 seconds, I'm back in my hotel room. I don't want to be there. I'm not comfortable. I don't like it. My former broker, my God, I took the man on a cruise to relax for a week. He came off with 50 business cards.
Yep.
I didn't put pants on for a week. He got 50. I'm sitting there with my shorts on the whole time. He's got 50 business cards.
But you're the closer.
But he couldn't tell you where he put a contract to save his life. Me, I get that. I get the lead. The next thing you know, we're getting a closing check out of the office.
Exactly.
Because my stuff is straight. And that synergy, I was willing to admit, I'm not good at this thing. I'd like to be better at it. I'm willing to work on getting better at it. But while I am not above taking advantage of the fact that my skill set happens to line up well with the weaknesses in yours. We seem to fit together pretty well. And guess what? That went on that way for like 8-10 years. And it was great.
Beautiful partnership. That's play to each other's strengths. I have so many nuggets. Thank you for being here today. I know you're traveling and speaking and all the things. I'm really grateful to share this time with you. Thank you for being here today.
Lisa, thank you so much for having me on. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, I have so many nuggets for me. What I'm hearing on the back end and get Josh's book. What's the title? You have many books?
I have two. The one that just came out is a book called Close for Life. That's the lady with McGraw-Hill. And that book is all about how to get out of this rat race of chasing paychecks and how to start closing customers for life. People that would do business only with you. I mean, my father, when he bought his last Cadillac, the guy who was his sales guy had to come out of retirement to take his order because he wouldn't give it to anybody else because he had a guy. How do they say that about you? How do they say, oh, you need real estate? No. You go see Lisa. Lisa's the only one you talk. I'm going to get Lisa on the phone. You tell Lisa I told you. Lisa, she'll take care of you. If they're not saying that about you, that should be keeping you up at night. What are you not doing to make customers feel that way about you? That's how you build a business. That's how you stop acting like an employee and start acting like a CEO and really start building something that's going to take care of you. And more importantly, that you can be proud of. And that's going to be part of that good life that you're trying to build.
Yep. Build a good life. Live a life worth living.
Every day.
Have a vision for your life. Know your shit.
That's it.
Be in the industry because it matters, because you matter and your clients matter. And like our friend Brandon Steiner says, you got to have balls. You got to go for it.
Yep.
And I think that anybody can take this conversation today and apply it to any part of their life and know that put your heart into it, take some risks, do the right thing, and things will work out. I believe that.
Yep.
And that's what I heard from you today.
That Wayne Gretzky quote of you miss 100% of the shots you don't take is totally true. So,
yeah,
we gotta go out there and look, that wall does come down. You just got to take and you got to find different ways. Sometimes you got to tunnel under it. Sometimes you got to go over it. Sometimes whatever. But if being behind that wall, if you let that be so intolerable to you, you will find a way to the other side.
Perfect way to end the show today, Josh. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Hey, thanks so much for being here today. I hope this conversation was super inspiring for you. Make sure you subscribe to my channel. And if you're looking to take the first step in my world, I know that you need to know your money personality. Join me on the adventure of knowing what your money personality is and how you can live your healthiest life financially. Do that today.